As someone who was and still remains a big Hershey Bears fan, last year there was no bigger disappointment to me on the Sabres than one Beck Malenstyn. Hey all, Chris here from Ripdog Sports and welcome to the Sabrecast. Today, we finally get started with our forward group talking about Beck Malenstyn, who we have ranked as the 13th forward on this team. We'll get into why I have him ranked kind of as the odd man out as far as the forward group. But first, we're going to talk about his history and a little bit about how he found his way onto the Sabres, why he found his way onto the Sabres, and why last year was a major disappointment. So Beck Malenstyn is a 27-year-old player. He's 6'3", 210 pounds. He can play left or right wing, and he shoots left. He was drafted by the Washington Capitals 145th overall in 2016, and he played out kind of an extended rookie contract because he didn't make his professional debut until 2018-19 with the Hershey Bears, where he scored 7 goals, 9 assists, had 16 points over 74 games. But he would eventually make his NHL debut in 2019-2020, where he played 3 games with the Caps, and he scored no points. Before I get more into his history and his numbers, it's important to remember Beck Malenstyn is a almost pure fourth-line defensive forward. That is the role he has played throughout the majority of his career in the minors and in the NHL. He's not someone who's going to score a lot of goals. He's there to hit people, block shots, get into scrappy board play, kill penalties, do all kinds of work like that. That is his role. So these offensive numbers are not going to seem very high. So just keep that in mind as we proceed, because his role is to do a lot of the dirty work, a lot of the stuff that doesn't show up on the stat sheet. So as I say, he played the 3 games in 2019-2020 with the Caps, recorded no points. Over the course of the rest of that year, he played 46 games in Hershey, had 7 goals, 8 assists, 15 points. But then he ended up tearing his ACL, and he missed the entirety of the 2020-2021 season. When he returned in 2021-2022, he broke the 10-goal barrier, scoring 10 goals for the Hershey Bears with 6 assists, 16 points over 65 games. And that year he got 12 games with Washington as well, and he was able to record his first NHL goal. The next year was more of the same. He played 40 games in Hershey and 9 games in Washington. Didn't do so much, scored 6 goals, 4 assists, 10 points in 40 games with the Bears, and had a goal and an assist in 9 games with the Caps. But it was the playoffs that year, the 2022-2023 Calder Cup playoffs, where Malenstyn broke out. Yes, he had 8 points, which is basically more than he had all season, 8 points in 20 games for the Bears during their championship run, but he was everywhere. If you watch that team, he was killing penalties, blocking shots, being a pest, he was contributing offensively, he was all over the ice, and he played a very, very large role on the Bears' playoff success. He seemed to be a guy who was ready to take that next step, to be a true fourth-line grinder in the NHL, which, we don't give a lot of credit, but it's a very, very important role, being able to shut down the other team's best players. So, Malenstyn, the next year, comes up to the Caps, parlaying that great Calder Cup run, and he gets to play 81 games with the Caps over that year, all the games but one, had 6 goals, 15 assists, 21 points, plus-minus of -1. So he was very, very good for the Capitals that year. His comparative advanced statistics, not very good, but he was able to do his job serviceably enough that the Buffalo Sabres said, hey, you're a restricted free agent, but we're going to trade a second-round pick for your rights, and we're going to sign you to a $2.7 million deal over 2 years, which is a 1.35 average annual value, which is pretty good for a fourth-line grinder. Clearly the Sabres thought that this is a guy we need for our team to take the next step. And unfortunately, it didn't quite work out for the Sabres or for Beck Malenstyn last year. It's important to remember, right? His role is defensive first. Back check, block shots, tie people up, kill penalties, shut down the other team's best lines. And he did that in Washington. And the Sabres wanted a guy in their bottom 6 who was going to firm up the team defense. But it didn't really work out. So you can see that, again, the plus-minus is the plus-minus. The Caps are a good team. The Sabres are not a good team. But in 103 games with the Capitals, he was an even plus-minus guy. Exactly even, 0. In 76 games with the Sabres last year, he was minus 16. His limited offense dried up as well. So whereas in Washington in 81 games, he was able to contribute a modest 21 points, he had less than half of that in his 76 games in Buffalo, only scoring 4 goals, 6 assists, 10 points, and he had a 23-game point drought thrown in. Now, yes, he's a defensive first player, but in 76 games, you have to be able to contribute more than 10 points. And if you aren't doing that, your defense has got to be letter perfect, and it was not. The production wasn't there, and the defense wasn't always there. Sure, he gives effort, but I just think he got a little bit found out, The Capitals, say what you will about them, they find ways to be physical up and down their lineup. So by the time you get to the fourth line, there's been a clear precedent established. Also, Malenstyn on the fourth line in Washington is probably playing with better players than he's playing with on the fourth line in Buffalo. What you needed for that money was a guy who was going to be the star of that fourth line, who was going to lift the other players up, be the leader, be the guy who sets the tempo. And we really didn't get that last year in Buffalo. What has become apparent for Malenstyn is that he needs talented players around him to be the most effective. By himself, he cannot anchor a bottom six line. And if the people around him also cannot offer a lot of resistance, he doesn't have the ability to carry the unit by himself. Now, that in itself is not a failing. You can have a lot of good, gritty, bottom line guys who are not able to carry that group, but are still necessary and useful as kind of the henchmen of that line. But the Sabres have a problem in that they could not provide that type of personnel for him. He was left to kind of his own devices as far as being a leader on a bottom six line, which he just can't do, unfortunately. It's just doesn't quite have the talent. If the Sabres provide other gritty bottom line personnel and he is able to carve out a role, he can probably find his footing in his second season because his skating ability makes him desirable for the Sabres front office. But right now, after this offseason, bringing in Josh Doan from Utah and Justin Danforth from Columbus, Malenstyn may find himself the odd man out in the group. As far as a comparison to Danforth, who is most likely going to be fighting with for that last spot, he has an advantage in terms of size, but Danforth clearly has been the better player throughout his career with the comparative analytics. And so I think Malenstyn might be on the outside looking in. Of course, I like him due to his Hershey connection, but I have to be honest and say last year was not good enough, and the Sabres are really trying to push this a little more into being a competitive playoff type team. You got to upgrade, and they upgraded as far as defense, I think, with Doan and Danforth. They've lost offense. Malenstyn doesn't contribute offense. Danforth provides more offense than Malenstyn. So if you're trying to make up goals in the aggregate from losing Peterka, Danforth is probably the better player to go with. Also, he's just the better player in general. So I think as far as Malenstyn, I think Danforth is going to take that last right wing spot on the fourth line. I think Malenstyn's only chance to get on the roster is as a left wing, which that can only happen in the strange occurrence that the Sabres decide to put Krebs on the left wing and Doan at center, and then maybe Malenstyn and Krebs have a little bit of a back and forth there. But I think Malenstyn is in line to find himself as a scratch most nights. He'll get into the lineup sometime. I think he will split some time as the 13th guy, as the right and left wing, but I don't think he's going to be a guy who's in the lineup every night. And if the Sabres decide they want to bring up some of their young forward talent at some point, then I think Malenstyn might find himself out of the team. Maybe having to play, he'll have to go through waivers, but maybe on waivers, I think it's a possibility. I don't know if Malenstyn will see the end of this season. It really depends on how out the Sabres are on him from last year and how willing they are to give him another chance. So I don't expect too much from him. I think he's on the outside looking in, but that's Beck Malenstyn. What do you think? Do you think Malenstyn should have a spot in the lineup this year, or would you rather go with Danforth and Doan and Krebs on that bottom line? what you think. So please leave your thoughts below in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. If you're enjoying these play introductions and you're wanting to see more of the content we're going to have coming for you this season, please subscribe to the channel. So that's all for today. As always, go Sabres. See ya.